True Testimony Unveiled TV announcement. Please note that this episode was recorded 3 weeks prior to President Joe Biden's decision to withdraw from the 2024 presidential election. Despite this development, the series remains relevant and addresses critical political concerns aimed at improving the well-being of all U.S. Please stay tuned.
All right, welcome back to TTU TV. This is the first time that we're literally just going straight forward with the TV segment on Kingdom Keys Network. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Jessica Veale. I have my podcast, True Testimony Unveiled Radio, but now we're moving and shifting into an aspect of television. This series, we're starting this series. This is a really important series because, as you all may know, if you've been following my YouTube, it's titled Prophetically Unapologetic. I've been talking about doing my Bible study series, as well as, my fundamental talk show, my Always Talking Topics. I named a few times within the past 3-4 years about the revelation God has been downloading into me. He's been giving me bits and pieces about why we should vote for Donald Trump. A lot of people would say, yeah, I know what you're talking about, Jess. Some people are like, well, why would I vote him? So in this series, we're going to talk about it. We're going to get into it. We got some receipts. And we got my good friend, Aaron Felwell, that's sitting beside me. He is so serious about what he do. And I really love him for that because people need answers. We need answers. We need to understand about the government that is governing us. And is it detrimental to our lives, or should we continue to follow along? Because, we don't want to make a fuss for no reason. So for those of you who've done your homework, leave some comments below. But for those of you who have not done your homework, listen up. So we're going to ask Aaron Felwell to tell you a little bit about himself and his journey. Who he is before we get into the knowledge that he knows, because this is very important for us here at TTU TV and Kingdom Keys Network. So Aaron, tell them a little bit about yourself and what caused you to start studying the government and to understand that it is in our best interest to vote for Donald Trump. We're not saying that Donald Trump is a saint, but we're saying that voting for Donald Trump is purposeful for our protection as a human race that is taking care of our families and our communities from a day-to-day life. Okay, Aaron.
Well, thank you, Jessica. I appreciate the introduction. I hope I'm speaking loud enough. I tend to speak kind of low because I don't really like talking in the first place. So my name is Aaron Farewell. Some know me by AJ Farewell. I began as a student of the Bible. That led me down a very serious rabbit hole because I took it extremely serious. Extremely serious. At a point, my studies led me into becoming a Hebrew Israelite. That lasted for a brief period of my life. And my studies became more intense. Through my journey in these studies, I've had life experiences as well. So as an activist for a brief period of time in the great state of Ohio, I spent time with the Democratic Party. I spent time with a really close friend of mine who was a page trying to get into politics. So he operated as a page both for the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, and I would go with him sometimes. And I got to see how both parties worked. So that let me see more. And then, of course, I'm studying the Bible. I was studying the book of Revelation pretty heavy. And myself and the brothers that I was with at that time, we stumbled on to cracking the code around 666. We learned we learned a few things. Which fast forward to today, helps with what's been going on today. One thing I can say really quickly is when the pandemic hit, I guess it was 2020 when that happened. Mm-hmm. When that hit, I had a handful of people who remembered me and my brothers, 2001 and 2002. We talked about this back then. We didn't know that it was going to be called this, but we knew that they were working on it. We uncovered the plans for what it was. And we said then, the way they're going to get you is through your health. Thing that means something. It's going to matter to you. They're going to hit you with a scare. And if you are unaware that this is going to happen, you're going to fall into the trap because you want to be healthy. 2020 came, scared everybody with health. People were dying in real life. We said this back then too. People really going to die. It's going to be real stuff. But you got to understand how to arm yourself. And it's with knowledge. Understand at that time and now with faith. Now, faith without works is dead. So you're working with real knowledge, and you're putting faith in real knowledge. God gave us the real knowledge. So it brought me to this point where I have more information. Life is becoming more and more familiar to me. I'm seeing the patterns over and over and over again. When you've been at it for as long as I've been at it, you start to see patterns, you see things. You get a little bit more quiet. You're not yelling so much as I was in the beginning. I was very loud. I'm not so loud now because I gotta wait. I gotta see who's in front of me. You might need the information. You might not. Some of you watching might turn it off. I don't need this. You don't. But the ones that are still watching, well, you might need this. And I'm going to come with real information that's concrete. It's going to sound a bit far-fetched, so I'm going to give you real stuff that you can really use, because it's not, I don't have any cap in me.
Thank you so much for that. If you've seen the first episode to this series, I revealed to you all the biblical truth, how the Lord revealed to me that the revelation is in the Bible, in the book of Daniel, for the story about the four kings. And we'll get into that a little bit more. But I've explained to you a little bit about the spiritual aspect through our illustrations that we use from the book of Daniel, the movie. And we'll get deeper into that. But it's really important. On this assignment, God has revealed to me it's very important for people to understand the spiritual aspect as well as the worldly aspect, because some people need to see it to believe it. So stay tuned. We're moving along to the next segment.
Testimonies on this platform revealed. In God's love, forever bright. True testimonies on this platform revealed. In His love or gratitude sealed.
All right, we are back to TTU TV. Now, as per promised, Aaron Farewell and I are going to discuss some things that are really a hard pill to swallow, but it's overdue. As we know, the election is coming, and we have really been faced with the question of who do we vote for? We had to face this back in 2020, okay? We're facing it now. This has been something that has been so important to the Lord that He has revealed to me about the book of Daniel. He unctioned me some years ago that I spoke about on my YouTube channels as I was learning back in 2020 when I was doing a few series of Bible studies and shows on my YouTube channel, Prophetically Unapologetic. I was doing a lot of, studying. We were in the Bible. We were heavy. And the Lord was talking to me about how it was best for us to vote for Donald Trump back when everyone was talking about the abortion, how Donald Trump was against the abortions and Biden wanted us to get the abortion, and how God was talking to me about child sacrificing and how not only the government, but as well as us, the children of God in the communities, that we idolize a lot. I got stuck there because as a woman, it was personal to me about getting abortions. I don't believe in it. However, we have done it. I have done it. Was not happy, but at the end of the day, it happens, right? So we're discussing how God felt about these things and His perspective. And through the years, since 2020, God has been talking to me about the significance of why we should vote for Donald Trump, why He brought Donald Trump to my spirit in the first place. Now, back in 2020, I did not say Trump was going to win. I said God wanted us to vote for Trump. And as we've seen it play out, Biden's now our president, but we're faced back with this again. A lot of prophets said, listen, a lot of people are going to be shocked when they see the outcoming. They said this back and prophesied this back in 2020 because they knew that we would be here again with Trump running again. And a lot of these things that was being revealed, like Hollywood and etc. So for myself, I saw that God led me to the book of Daniel. I started to watch, there's a movie about the book of Daniel in order to get pieces of illustration to you guys. And when Daniel had to serve the four kings, and this is the story of Daniel, so you can find the story in Daniel. But when Daniel was forced to serve the four kings as being a prophet of the Lord, Daniel was unhappy about it. He said to God, listen, I want to go, I want to have my family, have my children, I want to go and live my life. Daniel was yoked by God for 70 years. He had to serve God for 70 years, and Daniel was tired. But God said, I need you to do this, because he needed him to go and warn the kings, warn those who were governing his children. God wanted things to get in alignment, right? In the end, after Daniel served the last 4 kings, he said, listen, God is not pleased with you as being a governor, serving divination. He said this because they didn't understand how to communicate with God. And so God was displeased because, like God said, there's false gods in the universe. Yes, God is the creator of the universe, but there's still false gods that lie in the universe. And with the government not following the Lord, they brought attack on God's children. We see that today. We see that today in our mental health. We see that today in our bodies, on so many different levels, which is why I have Aaron Farewell here to help me explain what he studied and what he learned on behalf of the government and their agenda in the bio war and so much more, right? My side of this is a spiritual aspect. His side of this, Aaron was commissioned to do the work, to give you the earthly aspect. Now, I knew if Daniel was sent to King Cyrus, which is the king of Persia, Daniel was sent to King Cyrus, the king of Persia, meaning the king of Persia did not serve our God. Daniel was sent to him to commission him to do this work. In today's society, Donald Trump is the king of Persia. And so I said, okay, I know God well enough to know the scriptures have to come alive. So I said, okay, who did God send to Donald Trump? If Donald Trump, this prophecy, right? If this prophecy is about Donald Trump, who did God send to Donald Trump? So I did some research. And so I'm gonna change the screen here because this research I did was back in 2020. It's been a while. It's been a long time coming with this research. But there was someone that God sent to Donald Trump. And I was shocked. I couldn't believe it before my eyes. But I couldn't even believe God had called me to be a prophet to the nation. I just couldn't. I didn't believe that. It was just crazy. But when I started to do the research and everything started to be revealed was when I said, okay, use me, God. Okay, God, I will be obedient. So this gentleman that you see here on the screen, he is who was sent to Donald Trump to be commissioned for presidency back in 1987. His name is Mike Dunbar. And I didn't understand, what was really going on. But to be honest with you, Trump, he really didn't want to take the position. He actually said no. He said no at first. Trump was young. There was a lot going on with Trump, but he literally made an announcement to a press and he said, no, I will not. Eventually, Trump became obedient, and as we all know, he ran. Now, why? Why would God want to commission someone who's not surrendered to him completely to do his work and to do his bidding? Aaron Farewell is going to help us get to the bottom of that. But for now, we're going to watch this short video.
Lots of front page coverage in the local media.
He was active in New Hampshire's Republican Party in the late 1980s when he had an idea.
I was looking for someone who was capable of literally transforming the political landscape.
A woodworker by trade, Mike decided to craft his ideal Republican candidate to succeed Ronald Reagan.
I felt it should be a businessman. I was aware of Donald Trump. I read about him frequently in the Wall Street Journal and the things he had managed to do in that Byzantine political culture in New York City. He had bent it to his will. And so he was the guy that attracted my attention. This stationery I had printed for the Draft Trump movement in 1987 when I was first trying to get his attention.
Mike's strategy worked, and after a visit to Trump Tower, he convinced the then 41-year-old to deliver a speech in New Hampshire. But Mr. Trump's message surprised the crowd and disappointed his host.
I'm not looking to be a candidate. I'm not a candidate. I'm not running for office.
You are really unique, and I will not soon forget that.
After the visit, Mike received a thank you letter and a copy of his book, The Art of the Deal.
I really appreciate your friendship. You have created a very exciting part of my life on to the future.
But he declined an invite to Donald Trump's Florida home, Mar-a-Lago, believing he wouldn't fit in.
Good luck, everyone. Thank you all for being here.
And so the pair never met again. Years later, he's delighted that his pick is now president.
That's one of the things that most tickles me, is that you can be just an average Joe, an average guy in this country, and you can literally pivot history. And that's what I did in 1987.
Okay, so you saw how Trump really wasn't interested. And you go back and you watch the book of Daniel, and you see where Daniel was sent to commission King Cyrus. King Cyrus was not really into it, but he was flattered. He said, "Your God, he want me? He want me?" And to be honest with you, God was banking on the fact that King Cyrus was arrogant, that he feels strongly about what he feels strongly about, but it will work purposefully according to God's agenda. So we understand that God did not say that Donald Trump was a saint. God understand that it works in God's purpose for Trump to pursue presidency and to govern us because it works in children of God. Now we're going to dig into that and we'll go over more of what I know about the spiritual aspect of the Donald Trump's prophecy. But for now, Aaron Fellow will give you some of his background on what he learned and how it's important to him and his work. So what did that video speak to you about, Aaron?
Thanks for bringing me back up, back on. I appreciate being here. With respect to that video, it just shows that someone had some foresight and they took the time to listen to their intuition, and they approached Donald Trump about it and sparked the idea, which is what someone like Donald Trump would need, is the idea to be sparked. Not long after that, maybe a couple of years after that, Donald Trump was also interviewed on the Oprah Winfrey Show. And she asked him during that interview, would he ever consider running for president? He again denied it, or he again said, no, I don't think so. But what he did say was, I think if I ever do decide to run, I would run on the Republican ticket. And the reason that I would run on the Republican ticket is because Republicans are gullible. So if I do run, I'm going to run on the Republican ticket. But for right now, as you all know, I'm a big supporter of the Democrats and the Democratic Party. And so that's what he said during that interview. So he was asked about it again. So it was brought to mind for him at least 2 times. So it was something that stuck with him. And it was in the back of his mind. And as we see, things transpired and he went on ahead and went forward with it with other encouragements. Now, why is he important? He's important because something that you can look at, you can research and see. The candidates who've ever run for president and gotten the presidency and were able to fund their own campaign, more than 50% of the funding for their campaign came out their own pocket or private money, but really their own pocket. Those men were assassinated. The ones who ran and appeared to be successful didn't get assassinated. Well, they had 100% funding from outside. And most of the funding from the outside was funding from those who want to keep things going in a certain way. We'll call them lobbyists for right now. Or people who control the lobbyists, special interests. So Donald Trump is another one of those who he largely funded his own campaign. He did not need the money that was coming from the special interest groups. And that's the thing that makes him important, because now he's really operating from here. He's not operating based on, we paid this money for you, you better do this. Can't puppet him, none of that. His stubbornness is important because it allows him again to be authentic and buck against something a lot of us don't know. I'll try to be brief here. He pretty much fired the CIA and the FBI while he was in office and hired his own private investigative companies. Now, why would you do that as a president? Because you got information that lets you know that you can't trust them. Special interest groups, they're very angry about that. They're very upset. You would think it would be the CIA and the FBI that were upset. They were, but not to the degree that the people who controlled the FBI and the CIA were upset about it. The work that was being purported by Dr. Anthony Fauci and others who were supporting him with Trump in office, while you couldn't tell because it was so chaotic, the good news is Trump was in office when this was going down. Now, that work began before he got into office under the last president. But while he was in office, it had to go down. Well, it didn't go down the way that they would want it to. He slowed up the process, and he did that on purpose. And one thing you begin to notice, the states that had a Republican governor had the least amount of restrictions. The states that had Democratic governors had the most amount of restrictions. Police state restrictions. Okay. I traveled from Georgia to Ohio several times during the pandemic. Something that didn't make sense, was not advisable at that time. The state of Ohio had a governor that was Republican. The state of Georgia had a governor that was Republican. And one or two of the states I had to travel through also had governors that were Republicans. So guess what? I didn't get stopped. If there had been Democratic one, there was an opportunity that I might have got stopped.
Hold that thought. I was on a mayoral campaign and a councilman campaign in two different states. And I've witnessed with my own two eyes that those who were sponsored were under the agenda of the minority for whomever was up the ladder. Education, all of these things, they were funded because they were, I'll take your agenda. A lot of people are forced to take their agenda, go by their agenda of those who sponsored them, from the congressmen and etc. Whether it's the presidency or just the community, it's the same thing. And I knew nothing about political anything, nothing. But the Lord put me in position to have resources and connections, and just my skills of graphic design or my skills of public speaking or my pledge into clergy, I just so happened to these fields. And I was able to witness all that you're saying. A lot of people do not understand that there's an agenda. When they back you, they support you financially or publicly, there's an agenda that's a mutual understanding. Just like with, yeah, you're an employee. It's not about what you desire to do and the change you desire to see. You're just a face.
Because they're funding you. They're paying your payroll. You're on the payroll. So you're an employee. So you got to do what they're saying. Effectively, that's what's effectively happening now. No one in politics will define it the way that I just did. As a matter of fact, I take offense to the fact that I said that. But if you really think about it, think about your job. You get fired if you don't do what they want. They're paying you. It's effectively the same thing. It's effectively the same thing that's happening. So that's why you don't. That's why they're fighting so hard to keep Trump from having an opportunity to run. But here he is. He's still campaigning, still running. They couldn't really arrest him and put him in jail because that's actually unconstitutional, because you can't do that to any former president or sitting president. You can't do it to a president. It's not allowed. That's written in the Constitution. A lot of people don't know that. And a lot of people do know that. Now, they're trying to figure out a way to go around that, but they're trying to figure out a way to do it delicately where it doesn't look like we're usurping the republic that they keep calling a democracy. This is a republic that operates in a democratic fashion, but this United States is a republic. It is not a democracy. A true democracy operates very differently than a republic. And I can't get into that detail because I haven't done that homework yet. So please forgive me, guys, for speaking on what I haven't done a full homework about. However, I do that homework. Look up what's the difference between a republic and a democracy. True democracy. The people who keep saying democracy, those are the people you need to watch out for. It was quoted, Lyndon Baines Johnson, one of the U.S. presidents, was quoted as saying, you want to get a white man? Get him to believe that he's better than the best Negro. And you can pick his pockets. Say that again. Lyndon Baines Johnson, another white man, said in order to get white men to dupe them, get them to believe that the worst of them is better than the best of one of us. Heck, get him to believe he's superior than anybody, and he'll empty all his pockets to you. So this is just to tell you that these are people who call themselves elitists proudly because they know that they're operating at a certain level of intelligence and they're banking on everyone else's ignorance. So why is it important for us as a people, disenfranchised, indigenous people, black people, Negroes, African Americans, right? We call ourselves these things. Why would we want to vote for Donald Trump when all of the racist things we believe he said and done? It's called political strategy. You need somebody who's independent like that in there because he's thinking for himself. Since he's thinking for himself, anyone who's highly intelligent can work with a man like that. Dumb or not, he thinks for himself. You can work with that. Why is that important? Because it allows you to now negotiate for what you want, and the Democratic Party has yet to do it. We've all been screaming that one. We all agree on that. Hey, why should I give my vote to the Democrats? Well, screw Trump, he's racist. No, stop. Every racist white man I've dealt with, we agreed on we don't like each other, but we also agreed on we're going to get this money. So we can part ways after we do this deal. They'll do that. When I had to deal with the Republican Party for the limited time that I dealt with them, and it was very small, very short, what I learned from them is that they're willing to negotiate, and if it's reasonable, they'll rock with it. But they're banking on you being unintelligent. But if you're not, they actually follow the law, which is this. If you can call them on it, they're going to say, you got me. What do you want? And they'll work with you. But if you're unintelligent and you're dupey and you're dopey, and they're not listening to you. I'm saying all that to say this. Donald Trump is your better bet because Biden is in a position right now where he's weaker. And what the telltale is, if you look at some of the interviews and you just pay attention, you can see where there are people who are doing interviews in Biden's stead. They're not Biden, but they're wearing a mask and they look like they're Biden. And so it looks like you're getting an interview with Biden when you're getting an interview with somebody else. But you want to look at these clips. I think we might have one here where we can show you where if you just pay attention, it's wearing a shirt, open collar like this, and then you can see the line where the mask ends and begins right here. You see the discoloration. And they employed the CIA to do that because the CIA has a considerable amount of money dedicated to disguise. And they make lifelike disguises that they put on your face. And so you believe you're talking to who you're talking to, and you're not talking to them at all. You're talking to somebody else. And so we can see in certain clips where that's what's happening. And you notice the difference from a clip of actually him, where you can tell that his dementia's kicking in, and the ones where he's on point and he's keeping up. But if you pay attention, skin discoloration right here. So there's an opportunity that he might not be debating Biden in this debate that's coming. There's a chance that might be the case. We might not be getting the real deal picture.
Right. There's a news headline that I had recorded years ago to present. This is something that's really important because it's a newspaper. I think it's a sovereign newspaper. When I saw this, I was shocked. What is the hidden agenda? Will we ever truly know what the hidden agenda is of the government and their plan for us? We know. So this independent newspaper says that Joe Biden and Bill Gates, who else was it? All of them, Joe Biden, Bill Gates, the Clintons. What's that conspiracy that bust with everybody? I forgot what they called. It was a bust for a lot of people that was involved, which we will get into with the child and all these hidden agendas. One of the hidden agendas, this being Bill Gates, was to depopulate. The vaccination plan was to depopulate. And understanding that, can you speak a little bit on that? How could the vaccination cause for a depopulation? How could the vaccination have caused harm to us? Now, we know that the government said they made a mistake and then they took it back and said that there was no mistake. They had a lot of things. The government has a lot of things. And what we're doing is we're trying to get to the bottom of it at this point, because we need to know what we need to do. Right here in China, they had oil in their tap water where it was set on fire. And I'm like, how does that happen when you're supposed to drink this water? There's a lot of hidden agendas in their ways to depopulate. We knew for a very long time since we were young that our parents talked about preparing for the Armageddon, making sure we got our non-perishable, like that. The meats being contaminated. To this day, there's so many things that have taken place from 2020 to now. So a lot of people have a lot of speculations about the hidden agenda of the government. But there's some things that you spoke about to me about the hidden agenda of the government, and I wanted to get into that. So what are some things that was brought to your attention about their hidden agenda to depopulate and etc.?
Okay, so when it comes to the depopulation, so Bill Gates has been implicated as somebody who is for it. I believe there's some public record of him saying it directly. The best way to help depopulate the world is through using vaccinations. He did say that publicly a couple times in a couple different public speeches that he gave. So with respect to the vaccination, the situation that happened with COVID-19 was kind of a test run. They wanted to see, could we successfully get the world to shut down? Could we successfully do that? And they did successfully get the world to shut down. They got the cooperation of the people on that. Something that a lot of people would not have believed was possible. Some comedians even said publicly, I would have never believed it because people are rebellious. And people are rebellious. But you saw how few people were really truly rebellious and how many people were obedient is the word I'll use, right? So they ran that test. The shutdown was successful. The vaccination not as successful as they hoped. Now, it was successful enough for them to run their tests. They scared enough people to go ahead and get it so they could see what it would do, see if what they were thinking would work. So what's the significance of this vaccination and how is it harmful? Well, it was called an mRNA. Okay. So when you're talking about the RNA, you're talking about the ribonucleic acid. Okay. That is a part of one of the strands on your DNA. And so you have mRNA, you have like 4 different strands of RNA. I forget the other ones right now, but the mRNA is the part that deals with, is it memory? I think it deals with memory. That particular piece of RNA is the one that's delivering, no, it's the messenger RNA, excuse me. That's the RNA strand that delivers messaging to the DNA to tell the DNA what to do. So the mRNA strand that tells your nail that it's a nail, you can program it to say it's jelly and then your nail will turn to jelly. And so what they did was they developed something through something called nanotechnology. Nanotechnology is something that was being actively worked on since 1982, 1981, right around there. They had been working on it. Now, at that time, it was more theory than it was reality. Today, it's reality. The nanotechnology is computers small enough to attach to your DNA. And so this vaccination had the nanotechnology in it to attach itself to the mRNA strand to then deliver messaging to that, for it to deliver messaging to the DNA in order for the body to create, I forgot what they called it, but it's something that was supposed to help move your immune system to become immune to COVID-19 faster. That's what it was supposed to do. That's what they said that it was supposed to do. But let's think about this. If it's a computer, which that's what it is, that's what the nanotechnology is. It's computers. It's tiny computers that can attach itself into the cell membrane and ultimately into the DNA. Okay. And what it does is it alters your DNA. When the DNA is altered, we don't know what messaging they put in the program. We don't know what programming it's saying. They're not disclosing that. They're just telling us to trust them. So there were people who were adversely affected immediately upon taking the shot. They died. We heard of these things. And now we're just past the 36-month mark where scientists are saying, okay, now we're about to find out what the real effects of this are. We don't know, and we're waiting to see what's going to happen with people. At the Aboriginal Medical Association, what what's found there was, okay, we know that this adversely affected everybody's DNA. We know that. We've seen instances of it, and other instances have been given that we can find that are documented if we look. So what they figured was, okay, what we can do to help people is something known as a DNA methylation test. Okay, and what they're doing at the Aboriginal Medical Association, for those who are willing to go, if you took the vaccine, you basically got inoculated, because it's basically what happened to you. We have found a way to help repair your DNA. But we have to first take this DNA methylation test to see what's wrong, so we know what to prescribe to then help reverse whatever adverse effects that there may be. And you may have adverse effects that are dormant. You don't know what it is. So we have to test it to see what happened. This thing was so potent and so powerful that even if you didn't take the vaccine, but you had intercourse with somebody who did, you're affected. Like, that's how this thing was traveling. So you feel like, okay, I did a good job, I didn't get it, but you had intercourse with someone who did, you kind of got it, because you just had intercourse with that person. If you kissed them, full-blown intercourse, whatever you did, if bodily fluids was exchanged, it was exchanged. The thing we got to look out for now is the fact that they're putting vaccines in lettuce, in tomatoes, in your produce. And so now you got to look for the signage that lets you know that. You got to pay attention, because they're not going to say it directly, but you got to say that it looks a little strange. So you got to continue to look for the organic stuff. Because if you don't, you're still going to get the mRNA vaccine because you ate a head of lettuce that has it in it, or you ate a piece of man-made meat that Bill Gates is putting out in all of your regular grocery stores, Walmart especially, where a lot of us get our meat from. Okay, it doesn't taste any different. They worked really hard on this, so it's hard for you to tell the difference off of taste. You need to read, and most of us don't read. This is why we don't know most of the things we don't know. And we're very far behind on a lot of things right now.
It's just so true. Of the things I showed you about the oil being in the water, all of these things, it's just proof of a bio war, right? These are the different methods. We knew about the chip. A lot of prophets were speaking about the chip. The chip was the nano chip, so it was symbolic for the programming of the government, their program, their agenda, and reprogramming us. We in 2025, we got the ID, where we can't even leave the country and all of that. Your ID has to be an ID, and it's like, wait, that ID. All of these are running to whatever their version is of our care or protecting us from us having order. But really, it's harmful to us. They're not nurturing us as a government is supposed to govern. And so, yeah, there's this, there's a lot to cover about the bio war. The video that we're about to play, can you talk a little bit
about the biological war? So the biological warfare has everything to do with us as a people, those of us who have melanin in our throughout our body. Okay, so there's a couple different variations of the melanin. For those of us who have what I'm going to call dark skin, we have more carbon in our body. The carbon is what is producing the melanin. And then, of course, the melanin is what is producing the life that we're seeing. So a lot of this biological warfare has everything to do with them trying to extract the carbon out of us for them because of their genetic survival that they want, that they are for in a certain way. So a lot of it has to do with that. And then there's just pure notion of just having power. So is there biological warfare? Yeah, that's been going on for quite some time. We're in the middle of it. We're very much in the middle. It didn't begin. It began a long time ago. Okay, they started thinking about it back in 1982 when they started looking at the nanotechnology to figure out how to get inside the body. And they started tampering with the food then. And they just got better at tampering with the food now. And now it's just getting worse and worse. They found a way. Bill Gates made a partnership with Coca-Cola not too long ago. And in that partnership, it's allowing him the opportunity to test out putting nanoparticles in the soda. So now it's like, I can't drink no Coke products. Luckily, I don't drink Coke products, but I sure can't drink no Coke products now. That's the Dasani, the water. That's a Coke product. Study Coke products and know which beverages are Coke. You might not want to drink those because of the deal that Bill Gates has struck with Coke, where he has the opportunity now to, if he wants to, he can put nanotechnology in the soda. It's going to reach the masses. And this information came out quietly. It's there. You can look for it. You know, Google it. Bill Gates, Coca-Cola, you can Google it. But anyway, this began way back then. Legislation around it began in 1992. And it's called Agenda 21. So when we're asking, is there an agenda from certain clandestine group of individuals? Yes, there is. It's called the UN. We're all familiar with the UN. And so 100 heads of state, as you may see in this video here, we'll hear in this video here, 100 heads of state agreed to certain things. And so we're going to let this guy talk, and then I'll talk about what he's talking about.
Agenda 21 for global environmental action. HCON Res 353 outlines a comprehensive national strategy for sustainable development in accordance with the principles of Agenda 21 to be coordinated under the leadership of a specific office and at the direction of a high-level government official. The resolution also urges the United States to identify and initiate further agreements to protect the global environment and to support the creation of a high-level United Nations Sustainable Development Commission headed by an Undersecretary General. Third and lastly, the President is urged to report to Congress on the progress made on with this action. HCON Res 353 is supported by the administration. I have been in contact with the appropriate offices of the State Department and have incorporated their suggestions into the resolution. The 71 co-sponsors of this measure include one-half the members of the Foreign Affairs Committee and all of the House delegates to the Earth Summit. It is also supported by the major United States non-governmental organizations concerned with the environmental issues. The Earth Summit presented world leaders with an opportunity that should not be lost. We must now embark on a new course that will sustain our planet and its resources for the benefit of future generations. This resolution calls on the United States to assert its leadership to achieve this goal. I urge my colleagues to support this resolution. Thanks again to the members of the Foreign Affairs Committee for their recognition of the importance and timeliness of this resolution. We must make the promise of Rio a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In 1992, Henry Lamb was trying to warn people about the agenda. Okay, I've been trying to let you guys know that there's actually an agenda taking place, and they don't really care if you like it or not, even if you're in America with the Constitution and everything. But he tried to warn everybody about Agenda 21, that the United Nations and everybody else had settled on this, and they were putting it into place. Roll the tape.
On the radio and in audiences like this, Mr. Lamb, there's no such thing as a global agenda. Hey, friend, you're absolutely wrong. Here it is. It's called Agenda 21. Agenda 21. The primary document presented in Rio de Janeiro and adopted by more than 100 heads of state, including George Bush, which lays out in intricate detail all of the transformation that must take place in society in order for it to become sustainable as they define sustainability. This may be available at the United Nations bookstore. I had to pick this up. I had not seen one until last July. Had not been able to get one. I happened to be in Geneva attending a United Nations meeting, and I went to the bookstore and bought the thing. So the parties held its first meeting in Nassau last December. At that first meeting, the United Nations Environment Program presented them with a global biodiversity assessment. Started in 1992 with a grant from the Global Environment Facility for $3.3 million, orchestrated and coordinated by the World Resources Institute and the World Wildlife Fund and the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. This is 1,140 pages that explains how to implement the 16-page treaty on biodiversity. The last 200 pages, section 13, deals specifically with a system of protected areas. It defines what a system of protected areas is. It includes core wilderness areas surrounded by buffer zones, similar to those used in the biosphere reserves, created under a UNESCO program and promoted by the United States Man in the Biosphere program. There are 382 biosphere reserves around the world, 47 of which are in the United States. not under authority of any treaty, but by voluntary agreement with the United Nations. These biosphere reserves are to be the nucleus for the core wilderness area. Scratching my head here, what on earth is going on? And then I stumbled on page 993, and friends, if you don't think that's some heavy reading at night, page 993, after describing these protected areas, sums it all up by saying, the recently published Wildlands Project in the United States is the central theme of protected area. And on page 15 of the Wildlands Project, Dr. Reed Noss says that we must convert at least 50% of the land area of North America to wilderness, off limits to human beings. Those core wilderness areas are to be interconnected by wilderness corridors, off limits to human beings. Those wilderness areas are to be surrounded by buffer zones that may have limited resource use under the supervision and permitting of the federal government, in collaboration with...
Okay, so that last piece was important. And the reason it's important is, if you recall, Donald Trump said we need to build a wall between the United States and Mexico. That wasn't because he was being racist. That was because of what that man just said about a wilderness project where you have all of these different wildernesses that are protected by government, but they're not governed by any specific government. These wilderness areas, that's where your sex trafficking is happening. That's where your illegal drug trafficking is happening. That's where your missing persons are being missed off to. And these wilderness areas are connected by corridors where you could be in that wilderness and never see civilization. Donald Trump is trying to stop that from happening. And the patriots that are supporting him are aware that this is going on, and that is why we're trying to vote for Donald Trump, because we want to stop that. When he was in office, he effectively stopped a fair amount of that stuff from happening. He slowed it down considerably. He didn't stop it. He slowed it down considerably with all of the things that he was doing. You want to know why he's rambling on like a nut? It's because he understands who he's up against. And he knows these people want to kill him. And they're
because of the chain. Because of the chain. You remember when I was talking about that whole group of people? I think everybody was in there, right? Oprah Winfrey, all of them. I forgot what you call it. We'll show it on the next episode. But all of them got in trouble for sex trafficking or having something involved with it, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Now we see
Epstein.
Yeah. Tunnels with beds coming out of them, all of these things, and it's still under the principle of child sacrifice. Sacrificing children to, I think, Moshelet. I talked about this in 2020 when God brought up the child sacrificing. He was speaking to me with the seed of us discussing abortion.
The deity's name is it's a Roman deity. The Roman deity's name is Africa.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about that on the next episode.
Yes, that's the Roman deity. The other Roman deity, that Roman deity's name is Pan.
Yes, but there's
that deity is the
it.
god of bisexuality, and so that's what they're worshiping.
Yes. Right, the statue of the man with the penis. Mokolech, Molech. You got Baal. You got
he's also known as Pan.
Yes, all of these. Yes, different names, same deity, but all of that is child sacrifice. Whether it's about abortions or whether it's about them actually kidnapping the children and sacrificing them, it's the same program.
Yeah,
it's the same program. So this is really important. Us voting for Trump, it just works in our favor. It does not mean that, Trump is the saint because God is using him. God can use a donkey. But us voting for Trump works in our favor. it helps us to be able to continue to govern ourselves in preparation for the Armageddon, for Jesus' return. All of these things, it helps because we're now governing ourselves accordingly, in which the government can no longer govern us. We're seeing that now, even with the election. The truth's coming out about Hollywood, right? Where they're dealing with the Satanists, right? The whole thing with all of these men sleeping with men and Sodom and Gomorrah and all of these things. When you're in that high up ladder, you're now learning what's going on behind closed doors. It's just not about Diddy. It's not just about R. Kelly. It's about the Hollywood lifestyle with the different tax brackets. Being able to sit in rooms with people that is up there with Bill Gates. And everybody got to say so in the agenda on the congressman who has the money. And so, yeah, on so many different levels, Aaron, so many different levels.
Of course. I mean, and you gotta slow walk it, because even the stuff that I talked about is still, still a lot, and it sounds far fetched. It sounds like, I'm talking out the side of my neck. I promise you I'm not. And that's what some of these videos were here to let you know. Like, this is old information, to be quite honest. Our goal is we understand that our audience is largely us. Okay? And so because our audience is largely us, a lot of us, and by us I mean the so-called African American, the so-called Negro, the so-called Black person in America is far behind on the information. And I'm not saying that to diss us. I'm saying that to say, hey, we need to snap too. We're having weird conversations while everybody else is preparing for the next phase of life on the planet. And we worried about Pookie and Phuket. And it's like, bro, we're not going to have that argument in a minute. We're going to be trying to figure out how to get free again. Right? So the other reason it's in our better interest to vote for Donald Trump is because with him in office, our people get a chance at reparations. And I know that sounds far-fetched too. Donald Trump reparations. We're going to roll out how that is going to work. But just know, without that, our ability to get it smooth is not there. I can say that much because I'm not close to those conversations. These conversations, let's say this is the conversation right here. I'm right here when it comes to a conversation. I'm over here enough to know it's happening. Has happened. Don't know what details are there. Right? But I'm over here. The people having the conversation right here. And I heard enough to know, oh, it's happening. Oh, we can get it. We just need to get him in. Let's get him in. We got a shot. The only issue our people is going to have is we need to agree. We need to put aside petty differences. We need to agree long enough to get to what we need to get to. And we can go back to our differences after we get what we need to get. But we don't get because we be having these dumb arguments. I'm African, I'm indigenous, I'm Hebrew. Nigga, we got the same problem. I have an opinion on all of that. But before I give that, I'm going to give, we need that check though. What we need to do to get that check. The Asians be having the same weird conversations, but guess what? Publicly, United Front, get the money. You know what we didn't get when we got Juneteenth? We didn't get no money. You know what the Asians got back in 1988? They not only got certain other things, they also got a check. We didn't. We went up here, we shook hands with Donald Trump, got some stuff for HBCUs, but we still weren't effective even with that. And he was willing to be effective. That's the kicker for me. He was willing to be more effective. We missed it. Joe Biden comes in with kumbaya around him, and we get Juneteenth as a federal holiday. I was pissed off about that. And there's a longer story about it. I know I might sound anti-Black when I'm saying that, but I was like, no. Do you know the real story behind Juneteenth? Do you know what really happened? And I'm not going to jump into that right now because I don't want to chicken about it because we don't have that in the comments. People will be like, this nigga don't know what I'm talking about. I do know what I'm talking about. How about this? When the Civil War happened, how about Texas didn't exist? So at the end of the Civil War, when slavery was abolished, there was not a Texas. So we had to go to Texas and tell slaves that didn't exist, in a state that didn't exist, that, hey, slavery's dead. At the formation of Texas, slavery was already abolished when Texas was formed as a state. There were no slaves in Texas. It was illegal. So what are we talking about? And you can fact check me on that one. That one you can fact check me. I promise you. It's easy. You know why? Because look, in 1864, on the congressional floor in Georgia, they talked about who the people were who were the governing body, governing people of Mexico. Mexico at the time, it was Mexico, not Mexico, Mexico, right? And they said, it is known that the Moors and the indigenous people are the rulers of Mexico, and we should leave them alone. This is at a moment when Texas hasn't been formed yet, and slavery was already abolished. So what are we celebrating on Juneteenth? And then we made it a federal holiday and didn't get a check behind it. I'm cool if we're going to lie and get a check. We lied and didn't get a check.
I wanted to bring something else on the screen about Biden, right? Not so much about the vaccine, but around the time when the vaccine was being questioned, I saw this.
Mm-hmm.
And when I saw this, I was really messed up. Because when God said that, the government, that they were having alliances with people who do divination, that they were involved in divination. I saw this part about this who has been supporting and been in alliance with Bill Gates pertaining to the work of Microsoft, and she's a Satanist. Marina, I don't know, Abramovic. I don't know how to pronounce the name. And for me, I know
Abramovich.
But the thing about with witches, you can't be saying their name out here in this world because spiritually it's going to bring you warfare. Because that's what they do. Their form of protection is in false gods. And that's why they feel the need to operate in divination. We have the United States flag. We're supposed to be the country that's free, and we're really not. And so the government trying to learn how to fix these problems with us having so and etc. and their agenda to depopulate, reason of the bio-war and all of they're consulting witches. They're trying to manipulate destiny. And so with that being said, we're the ones that's losing out. We're the ones under attack. Can you take this last minute and speak to that, Aaron?
Sure. What I have to say about that is going to be very controversial, though. Well, I guess we knew that. So what we know today as divination is a bastardized version of original divination. The original form and version of divination is really truly a science. That science breaks down the celestial bodies in correlation to the human body, your brainwave state, how you think, and how it correlates to your connection to the earth. That's the original divination. This was stolen from our sacred caverns and transported back to the Vatican. They then took that and created false gods because we had deities. We called them that. They weren't really deities. We actually called them ancestors. That's what we call them. They called them deities and renamed them so that way they could take the ownership of it and make it look like it's coming from them and not from us. But they actually stole that from our ancestry. We had that going back